This is the Athletic Football Podcast weekend preview and match day 25 in the Premier League. I'm Michael Bailey. I'm standing in for Adam this week. Joining me, I'm delighted to say, are Tim Spiers. Hello, Tim.
What's up?
Good, thank you. Does a little bit of you still class Spurs versus Wolves as a Tim Spiers derby?
It was never for me to put that moniker on myself. That's up for others to decide.
That's fine. Well, I will decide later then in
Right.
that case.
Yeah.
Nick Miller's here as well, which is great. Nick, this is my question. You have not planted this on me. What was the favourite thing that you wrote, line or piece, this week?
I haven't actually written a huge amount this week, which is a strange thing to say for someone who's supposed to be a writer. But I've been working on something about the etiquette of celebrating goals against your former team, and I was reminded of. Do you remember Chris Maguire, he used to play for Sunderland
and Aberdeen,
and he moved. He had some kind of beef with then Sunderland manager Lee Johnson, then moved to Lincoln City, and he scored against Sunderland, and he did the kind of sorry for scoring against my old team thing, and then having done that, he ran over to wildly celebrate in front of Lee Johnson because of their previous beef, and then he went on to score 2 more goals in that game. And he had no idea what to do with himself in terms of celebration by the end of it. So
That's true.
That I was in the course of working on something, I was reminded of that, and that was,
That's wonderful. Can you keep non-celebrating?
Well, he sort of did. He kind of. By the third goal, he was just a bit kind of, I don't know. Yeah, I'm happy I scored. I'm sorry for you. Whatever. Just want to go home now.
Move on. Yeah, I've done with my lack of celebrations. You've heard him already, and you'll hear him now. It's JJ Bull, which is your first time today on the weekend preview.
That's right. What a great day.
It's a great day for the podcast. A great day for me personally as well, of course. What are you hoping for from this debut, JJ?
Well, I think probably instant fame,
Yes.
wild amounts of money,
Yeah.
and friendship.
Ah, you've already got that from us three.
And what really is more valuable than money or friendship? Yes.
He's fame, he said.
I
A dinosaur.
I suppose it does depend on who you're friends with.
Let's hold the dinosaurs for part 3. Let's go into the fixture formation, which I know is an Adam Leventhal favourite. It is the same as last week. I'm reliably informed. It sounds terribly defensive. It's a 7-2-1. Saturday to Monday. Let's go through them. Saturday, it starts with a 12:30 kickoff. Of course it does. With a Liverpool 12:30 kickoff. Lucky Jurgen. That is Liverpool at Brentford. We've then got 5 Saturday 3 p.m. kickoffs in the traditional sense. Burnley against Arsenal. Newcastle versus Bournemouth. Fulham against Aston Villa. Nottingham Forest take on West Ham. Will there be a response from the Hammers, who were thrashed? And, the Tim Spiers derby as Tottenham host Wolves. That's exciting. All ahead of the evening kickoff on Saturday, which you could class as the big one. Manchester City against Chelsea at 5:30 p.m. GMT, of course. All these times are GMT, just to be clear. Sunday, we've got a double-header. 2 p.m. Sheffield United against Brighton. Yes. Followed by the 4:30 kickoff, which is Luton against Manchester United. We'll be talking about that one for sure. Ahead of the Monday night football. The glamour tie of the weekend as Everton host Crystal Palace at 8 p.m. We are going to start the show, however, at the Etihad. It's the late kickoff on Saturday. It is a biggie, definitely. Champions Manchester City against Chelsea. The last time these two met, it was one of the games of the season. Yes, 4-4 that one ended. Any chance we get a blockbuster like that this time, Tim?
Oh, blimey. I don't know. Well, I don't know. You always sort of know what to expect from Man City, but not from Chelsea, who kind of went from by all accounts, their worst and most disastrous performance of the season at home to Wolves to their best away at Villa. Then they sort of squeaked past Palace on Monday night in the week after an XG of 0, I think, in the first half. So you just had no idea what to get, really. But yeah, that obviously that game was a classic. The kind of game that Guardiola hates because it was chaotic. Chelsea were great that day. Forced an awful lot of mistakes from Man City, so there's some kind of blueprint there, Michael, to do it again.
Well, there is, and it would be great to see them do it again. But in terms of what they need to do to make it happen again, they can't play at home again, Nick.
No, that would require some rather significant tinkering with the whole system, wouldn't it?
integrity of the competition
Yeah.
would be at stake. What are the things that Chelsea could do to disrupt Manchester City? Because we're all sitting here worried about the Manchester City juggernaut. I mean, I say worried. Obviously, that's a relative term. But
Yeah, it's kind of less worried, more kind of, oh, okay, this is happening again, kind of thing. It is a little bit difficult to figure out what logical that they could, do to sort of pick apart City. Though obviously City do have this kind of very slight defensive frailty sometimes, but again, you don't necessarily rely on Chelsea to have the kind of required attacking structure to actually break that down. So I think that this is going to be one of those games, as you kind of alluded to, where you've got one fairly chaotic team against one team that tries to be the exact opposite of that, and sometimes that will kind of, those things will converge and it will be an absolute battering, and sometimes it can result in a game like we saw early on in the season where it's just completely chaotic and there are goals going in everywhere, and penalties are being scored, and Erling Haaland scored with his crotch, I think, in for one of the goals last time, which I can't guarantee we'll see that again, but let's hope for it.
do you get a higher XG for that or lower XG?
I mean,
lower XG.
it must have been pretty high XG, because it was like it was from about sort of a yard out. So
a great point.
It's XXG, I think. If you do that.
I mean, Manchester City are doing everyone a service here, really, JJ, because I've reliably informed here. 12 occasions in all competitions, Manchester City have conceded from their first shot on target. It's like they're almost like, here we are trying to stem the chaos, and we've conceded. Quick, let's sort it out, and then they do.
Yes. What is the question?
It's more like that statement, really. And then, I mean, I don't know. They are a really good team, Manchester City. Yet they do.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think the evidence almost backs it up.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a quirk, isn't it, that they have conceded the first goal from the first shot on target on 12 occasions. That tells me there's like a concentration thing, almost more than anything.
Well, I don't know if it's that. It's probably because they have such control of games that I need to look into this more, actually. But before I just preempt all of this being wrong by saying that. But the reason they concede from the first shot is because they often push forward and they have all of the ball. So with the chances they concede are a really high value. So it's not like they're conceding a goal from maybe it's something random like a 30-yard punt that goes in the top corner. That can often beat a goalkeeper. Maybe it's a small error, but generally it'd be because we've got so many players push forward, you're leaving big gaps. So the chances people are creating on the counter-attack are of a really high value, and that's probably where I assume where that's coming from. And it's something that will balance out over time, because obviously it's an anomaly, right? That shouldn't really happen. You shouldn't really concede from every single first shot you concede. But I guess it's just something that's happened this season to them.
It's just, I think it's just doing everyone a favour, really, and opening themselves up a little bit and giving them themselves a challenge, maybe. A couple of injuries. They may be missing, well, I think it's highly likely they'll be missing Jack Grealish. Josko Gvardiol is an injury worry as well. I think Bernardo Silva took a whack in their midweek win in Copenhagen. So, I mean, we don't want to revel in injuries. Obviously, that's not the idea. And also, they've got the squad, so they're probably going to be all right. That's a shame about Jack Grealish. He hasn't really been a part of it this year, has he?
No, he's not. He's bad form, bad injuries. He's sort of even out the England picture now, looking ahead to the summer. So yeah, I don't know. City, they just make everything sort of look so easy. They made midweek look so easy, and distinct lack of drama. That 4-4 aside, I think they've only scored 2 90th minute goals all season. One was in a 5-1 win over Fulham, and then the Oscar Barb at Newcastle. So I think that's why people don't really necessarily enjoy watching them very much, because they just coast to victory quite easy. But yeah, in the reverse fixture, you look at Sterling and Palmer, two of their former players, giving them an awful lot of problems, and there'll be high motivation levels to do so again. But yeah, I think the statistics kind of bear out that when they're missing Rodri and when they're missing De Bruyne and obviously Haaland, then they win fewer games, which sort of makes sense, doesn't it?
It does make sense.
But if they're all in, then they win.
That sort of lack of late goals and the fact that they're conceding from their first shot on target, so they're kind of front loading the peril in their games, where they kind of go, well, okay, maybe this will be a bit of a contest, and maybe we'll make something of this, and then they go nah, and then just steamroller teams in the second half or whatever.
It's nice on supporters. They don't have to run the gauntlet of leaving early maybe and missing something, just turn up on time and you're all right.
Yeah.
Everyone can do that. That's fine. You mentioned Cole Palmer, Tim. I mean, he has looked sensational. Am I allowed to use the word sensation? I think that's fair. I think he just looks... He's got this this way of just doing magic things, like really creative but really influential as well. Part of me wants to say, if he was in this Man City team, they'd be even better than they are, but he probably wouldn't play. So they kind of had to sell him, but then it seems a shame that they did have to sell him, and that's obviously Chelsea's benefit. And a bit like earlier, I'm not sure what the question is here, but it's definitely of benefit for Chelsea to have someone like Cole Palmer in their team, of course. And he strikes me as the sort of player who is going to want to go to Manchester City and show them what they're missing.
I think you've summed it up really, really well. There's not much huge amount to add to your statement.
Question.
But yeah, I guess, I don't know. I don't think they'll regret it because, like you say, he wouldn't necessarily be playing. And sometimes it takes a move for a player to really sort of flourish. You can stagnate if you've been somewhere for a while. And I think he's really taken on the responsibility of already becoming a senior player in that Chelsea team. He looks like he's got that character to embrace it. And I don't think that would have happened at City.
I'm not that sure he is the kind of character to go, go back to my old club and I'll show you. He just seems to, and this is, not out through any kind of particular inside knowledge, but he just seems to be one of those guys who is sort of vaguely unaware of the world around him, and that I could be one of the reasons why he's been so good at Chelsea, because he's been kind of thrown into this deeply chaotic situation where players like Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez to an extent, and a lot of the other players that they signed over the summer have seemingly been a bit startled by this, and they're in this environment with no real structure, and Cole Palmer's just kind of slotted it, come in and seemingly unaffected by everything that's going on around him. So he's just been brilliant. So and like you said, he wasn't. I don't know. He didn't. He would have been very much a bit part player at Man City, but in coming years he would have been a much more significant player. So
I'm sure I read, and this might get cut out if it's not true when I check it, but I'm sure I read that he said he didn't. It wasn't that he was pushing to try and get in the team; it's that he was told one day that he was being sold to Chelsea. So there's like a different. I'm sure I read that in The Athletic. You can read that too in The Athletic. But that's one of the things I found interesting about it, because I don't know what part of this is true. Because if Man City are receiving a bid of 45 million, whatever it was, for a player that's come through their academy, that really helps with their FFP stuff to sell that on, because there's obviously it helps with the book value and all that sort of stuff. So that makes sense for them to sell him. They don't want a player who's not totally committed to what they're trying to do. And also, if you have someone who is a bit discontented and is trying to break in, and the best thing for his career is to get constant minutes, then the best thing to do for everyone is to sell him on. And then it made total sense at the time, I think, for him to go. And he scored. I think he scored in the Community Shield, and he also scored in the winner in the the European
Super Cup.
Yeah. So he's already at the level, and he's spent the last 2-3 years. He's seen Foden break in the first team, but not always play, because Guardiola's very careful with young players. And that's often overlooked, I think, is that they don't play loads of minutes. Like Foden's only really starting every single game this year. It's taken him long to get to that point, because he brings them in and it maybe gets them 20 league games a season. So it looks like they're not playing that much, but it's all part of a longer strategy.
I've done some deep research into this.
That was quick, Nick.
Yeah, well, it's the internet for you. There are 17 players who've made Premier League appearances over the age of 40. Most of them are goalkeepers. The outfielders are Teddy Sheringham, Ryan Giggs, Kevin Phillips, and Gordon Strachan.
Nice.
Brian Robson seemingly about 10 days short. He played when he was played a game when he was 39 years, 11 months, and 21 days old. But yes, mainly goalkeepers on that list, but a select few that Thiago Silva might join.
According to Transfermarkt, the second oldest player in the league this season, behind Thiago Silva, is Lucas Fabianski, who I would have predicted is about 32, to be honest.
And he is
38.
Oof.
Stunned silence in the room.
It's a career.
No one can believe it.
This is one of those things that a player's status kind of lodges in your brain from the first time you see them.
Yeah, the youngest sort of backup up and
coming.
coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
regardless of the fact that he's been a kind of first choice goalkeeper for probably about 10 years now, Swansea and West Ham, to me, he'll always be Arsenal's backup goalkeeper.
And Carlo Cudicini is still presumably at Chelsea.
Yeah.
I think he actually might be still at Chelsea in some kind of coaching role. He was a couple of years ago anyway.
Still hoping to get that England cap.
Okay, well, Nick, it's your chance to predict exactly what will happen.
I suspect Manchester City will win this relatively easily. I'm going to go 3-0.
JJ?
I say 2-1 to Manchester City.
It's a more
And
common
the goal will
score.
come as from the first shot on target at Chelsea. Yeah.
Tim?
4-1.
4-1. I'll go 3-1, because I don't think anyone said that, to Manchester City, just to clarify, in case anyone was wondering. I reckon next we go on to Kenilworth Road.
Carlo Cudicini is apparently lone player technical coach at Chelsea.
Oh, they all do like
What
a
is
loan
that?
job, don't they? That
Lone player technical coach.
he's either coaching the players who go out on loan, or the ones who, well, it wouldn't be the ones who come in, would it? So he's basically...
But why is he coaching the players who have gone out on loan? Surely the coaches at the clubs that they are
Yeah,
on
don't
loan.
trust them.
Well,
Probably give them feedback. He probably gives them feedback every game.
so does he go to the clubs that they are on loan and do coaching sessions there? He must have a massive stack of like club branded gear.
This is where you need to get your own train.
Yeah. Yeah, I reckon they probably make the parent, the loaning club probably has to make provision for Cudicini to do his work every week with them, I reckon. Sounds like a good piece.
His wife's name is apparently Carola Cudicini.
Excellent.
Looks remarkably
This is all
similar
staying
to
in,
him,
right?
but
Yeah.
it's got Cudicini in a dress.
Like,
Right.
like when Bugs Bunny used to.
Exactly, yeah.
It works. Let's move on to Sunday, 4:30pm kickoff. Luton Town against Manchester United. Now, Luton were in pretty good form and looking good and all those sort of things, and then had a kind of a disaster really against Sheffield United to lose at home like that. Manchester United, on the other hand, are in really good form. I think I can't work. I watch them and they are a lot of fun. I find them fun to watch because you're like, what's going on here? But then you also, I can't work out if they're any good. But they've got some really fun players to watch now, and I suppose that's sort of tying into the fact that I feel like I quite like watching them.
In my head, I kind of allocate. I think I allocate a one club every season where I have no idea about them, and I can't form any kind of significant opinion. For ages, it was Southampton until they went bad, properly bad last season, and I think this season it's Manchester United. No idea. I mean, they do seem to be bad, but they keep pulling results out.
Which they did at the weekend. Tim, I should congratulate you here on your perfect scoreline prediction last week. Well done. Tell us about your victory.
Well, I'd only got 4 predictions right all season, I think, even like results-wise. So, but I've realised I was using my heart instead of my head, because there's lots of teams I don't like. And
You just have such a big heart.
So, yeah, I thought about it.
Excellent. That's great. Wow. Who would have thought that would be the plan? I mean, have United been lucky in this kind of improved form, or is there genuine...
Well,
signs
their
of what they're
performances aren't great. I thought Villa were the better team last weekend. Kudos to United for winning the game. They're in good form. But yeah, they've got a goal difference of 0, which is insane, really, for a top 6 club or team. Never really happens unless you're David Moyes at Everton in 2004 kind of thing. Luton have won 7 games on XG this season. United have won 8. So, yeah, I watched them against West Ham the week before. West Ham controlled long spells of that game at Old Trafford and had almost double United shots. I watched them beat Wolves 4-3 when they basically threw away the game ridiculously before Minu got them out of trouble with an amazing goal. And their rivals around them just sort of keep stuttering. So Newcastle, really inconsistent form. Brighton, nowhere near it at the moment. West Ham have really dropped off. So all of a sudden you look at the table and United are in 6th and 5 points clear of 7th, and I think everyone would have taken that a few weeks ago from a United point of view.
They're only 5 points behind Villa now, aren't they?
Yeah,
Who are 5th?
yeah.
Oh my gosh. JJ. We should probably flag Rasmus Højlund here because 5 goals in his last 5 games. Whereas the narrative had kind of been set up until that point that he was a young kid who wasn't ready for the Premier League, and they spent a bit of money on him, but they didn't really know, weren't getting the best out of him. He wasn't ready. It was going to take time. And then, now he's got 5 goals in 5 games. So now he is good enough and definitely ready. and really good. He's shown great movement in some of the goals. He's good to watch at the minute.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to add on that? I'll just make up a question for myself.
Yeah, I think you've. Yeah.
He was already the top scorer in the Champions League, Højlund. So it's not that he wasn't working for him. He was already scoring loads and doing really well there, and it was naturally going to take time for it to click. But I think I'm sure you've covered on this podcast quite a lot of times before that. Well, I don't know. I've not been here before. It's my first time. But basically doesn't get many passes from his teammates. So Garnacho he's the most likely to pass, but Rashford tends to run with the ball into people to try and hope he skips past two of them and score. Garnacho hasn't really provided things. Anthony can only go backwards because I think someone put a spell on him at some point or something like that. So hopefully he can get over that. But then what you have is a striker who's not really getting chances. He only gets chances when the ball's put in behind so he can run onto it, but not everyone plays a high line against Man United because they're scared of people putting the ball over the top. And a lot of the stuff that Ten Hag does is to try and draw teams out so we can hit the ball over the top into space. There's a few patterns you'll often see, especially when the ball goes out to the left, where it goes forwards like a third man kind of move. The ball goes forwards about halfway, it's pinged back to the wide left, it's normally Rashford, and he first time pings the ball like a curved ball over the top for someone to run onto. And they do it quite a lot, and that's the biggest thing of like Ten Hag football that I see in Man United at the moment. They try and manufacture these moments where they can get the ball over the top into space, but not everyone falls for it, so they're often having to pass, and they're not fantastic at that. But Højlund's done obviously very well, especially in the Champions League, and now he's starting to get the recognition that he deserves. But he's a great player. I think he's he was really good before. I did loads of research on him before he joined the club, and I was convinced he would be good, and I'm glad I've been proven correct.
So you didn't even need a question, JJ. That's what I like. There is a piece from Laurie Whitwell and Tom Harris on Rasmus Højlund's season so far, I guess, and how he's turned things around. So give that a read. United are in an interesting position at the moment, Nick, because we had this week Jim Ratcliffe's investment is probably the word. That's now been ratified by the Premier League and the Football Association, so he's going to get his 25% of the club to do as he wishes, which is very exciting for us all to watch, of course. And the news that United want Dan Ashworth out of Newcastle and in their nice, tidy sporting director's office, which I'm pretty sure hasn't really been used yet, maybe not properly. I mean, all of this stuff, I saw a tweet, I don't know who it was from, I wouldn't want to misquote them, but it basically said that there's a chance here that United will no longer be a dysfunctioning club, and those two elements of this week make you wonder if that might be the case.
Steady on. I mean, I think it will take more than some sensible appointments to turn Manchester United into a sensible football club. But yeah, I think our very own David Ornstein saying earlier on today that they're also trying to appoint Jason Wilcox into some kind of role there, which is, it all sounds very kind of encouraging in theory, but also just shows that, highlights what the hell have they been doing previously if they have been kind of able to bring in these guys in relatively short order when Jim Ratcliffe isn't officially, his investment hasn't officially been fully approved yet. So, what on earth have they been doing before? If they can kind of fix things, or theoretically fix things, in this relatively short space of time.
Where do you see them going from here into the rest of the season? I mean, I would have thought going to Luton, that's somewhere that they could trip up. I suppose it could be because they're so inconsistent, but at the moment I kind of feel like they've got these youngsters who are showing up, and there's a bit of magic between some of them, and almost whilst questioning whether they've been lucky or whichever, they are finding a way to pick up positive results.
Well, scoring goals pretty frequently, which is always going to help. So, and that's helped by consistency in selection. So they've got a settled front three, they've got a settled midfield three. I don't think that's happened all season. It's Mainoo's obviously come in and elevated that midfield. Casemiro's doing okay. Fernandes does his thing, and then the three in tandem really up front to a certain extent. Garnacho, Højlund, and Rashford makes them good to watch. But you worry for them in defence with obviously Martinez probably out for the season. Luke Shaw picks up another injury the other day. They've had like dozens of combinations used for a back four this season, with a shaky keeper behind them, who himself, his form isn't helped by inconsistency in selection in front of him. So God knows what defence they'll put out. I think maybe Wan-Bissaka will be shoved in at left back, but whoever plays at left back is an obvious weakness for Luton to exploit. And going to break off because I can't remember the name of their right winger who
Ogbene.
does. Ogbene has been in good form recently. Absolutely tore Dan Burn to shreds a couple of weeks ago. So that'll be an obvious place for Luton to try and exploit an obvious weakness.
I don't want to keep flipping it onto Manchester United, but Marcus Rashford has seemed to be a lot more effective with Luke Shaw behind him as well in recent weeks. And Luton are on a great run of scoring goals. Only Tottenham are on a longer scoring run in Premier League matches than Luton, who've done it in the last 11 games. And they are scoring goals, and actually they did look, to me, JJ, like they were doing a good job of having a good go at surviving this season until they lost at the weekend. I can't help thinking losing at home to Sheffield United was a massive blow.
Well, the way they play, that's the kind of team they'd lose to now is Sheffield United, because what they're trying to do is play to their strengths, and their strengths are their strength. So they are all very strong, forward-thinking, fast players. So they might not be the best on the ball, apart from Ross Barkley in the middle of the pitch, but what they've been doing is getting the ball forward, and they follow it. So they play long to a target man, then they follow up. So this is a game that I could be proved totally wrong. Right? So what will happen is Man United will come in and Fernandes will ping one in from 25 yards in the first 5 minutes, changes the game state, and then they'll be able to hold on and they'll get a lucky 2-0. But what I think is more likely to happen, and why this would happen, is that Luton will not allow United to press them, because they'll play over the top straight away. Then what you're going to have is the key matchup will be Harry Maguire versus the Luton centre forward Adebayo. So Harry Maguire, I think, will be tasked with, he'll play probably on the left side. He did that last time with Varane on the right, which is the combination they've not done all season, even though it suits both those players individually perfectly. That's exactly what they should be doing, in my opinion. So they have Maguire will be against this guy. If Maguire wins the header, that's great, but it bounces loose and it's a second ball, and Luton are coached to then sweep that up, and they just suck it up. So they play with a target man, two wide forwards who play quite centrally, but they'll be around him, and then they squeeze up the two centre mids, and you've got wing backs giving you width. So they'll squeeze around the second ball. It's not counter pressing per se, but they push it up, and then they start to press that second ball and try and win that back. And they got turnover against, who was it they scored against the other week where they did exactly that? Brighton, exactly that. So it goes forward and they counter it, and then they manage to push up and score. But almost all of Luton's goals come from headers. They're all headers. So either crosses and open play, but mostly corners. And they break, so they sit deep, so United would have to come to them, then they have to try and create, which is not what they're good at, because like I was saying, they want to create those transitional moments where they put the ball over the top into space. They don't get it against Luton. And then what they get is just big lads against their lads who aren't quite as big, apart from Maguire, maybe Varane. So I think last week at half-time, Shaw went off as a precaution, but now he's maybe injured. Lindelof came on. Lindelof's not very good in the air, but he is a centre-back essentially, so you might have that sort of profile on, so you might have another centre-back at that position rather than Wan-Bissaka at left-back and Dalot. You need extra bodies. This is a game for Scott McTominay, so you need to put him in there, someone tall who can head it, and you'll probably have Højlund coming back to help defend the box as well. So a lot of the game will be built around whether they can manage Luton set pieces. They're very, very good at them, very clever, not only aggressive with the way they attack the ball, but they're really smart with them. But I think Luton will do a lot of is either early crosses, open play, or set pieces. They'll hook the ball directly into the middle of the 6-yard box just to try and pull Onana off his line, and then they'll have someone tall who'll time his run ahead of him or beat us there, beating everyone else in the air to head it in, and that's where Luton will get goals from.
I'm already looking forward to the social clips of you saying that, and then there being the footage of said goal being scored.
Well, it'll be the Fernandes 25-yard ping.
Well, that as well. And you've hedged your bets, JJ. It's the perfect way to do it. Scott McTominay's 7 Premier League goals this season for Man United have been worth 12 points. More than any player on any team this season, but maybe ever. It doesn't say, but I wouldn't be surprised. Don't know if I can see Erik ten Hag picking his team around Luton's strengths. I don't know if he might get tripped up here, but maybe I'm being unfair on Eric.
It's like United's weaknesses, though. That's the thing. Like they're not great. So you've got Casemiro's doing a kind of a job at the moment, but I imagine he could drop Mainu into that the playmaker role, so you can play it from the back if they want to. Luton will try and attack them there. That's what they'll try to do, but they don't really want to play too much out of defence. They want to be really quick with their passing because Luton will try and stop them early. And that's the problem they've got. Like Luton will press high, then drop deep immediately, and they'll find it hard to play against. The weaknesses that United have, it's more Luton's strengths actually when I think about it, because they are so big and so hard to play against. That's why they cause good teams loads of trouble. They've done it against all the big teams. They've caused them a real hassle this season.
Well, JJ, you're going to have to nail your colours to one prediction. The master of one prediction.
I think it'd be quite funny if Luton won 2-0, but I'm going to say 1-1.
Okay, I mean that was sort of two predictions, but we'll take the last one.
Yeah, 1-1.
Tim?
2-2.
Blimey. Nick?
I think Luton will win 2-0.
Well, I think that does all sum up what we're expecting from United, really. I think United will win 3-1. Let's crack on then. First of all, with Liverpool's trip to Brentford. As I mentioned earlier, Jurgen Klopp will be pleased. They just keep giving him these 12:30pm kickoffs on a Saturday. It's like, you asked for it, Jurgen. And we know he takes it well because he still gets asked and he sort of walks off when he's asked about it.
Yeah. Not after a European game this week, though, so maybe he'll be slightly kind of... It won't be quite as annoyed by it, but you never know.
Maybe. Ominous stat for Liverpool is that Brentford haven't lost at home to Liverpool in the Premier League, Tim. That is only 2 games, and one of them was a draw. But it does feel like somewhere that Liverpool could slip up.
This separates the good commentators from the bad commentators, because if you hear someone saying at the weekend, Liverpool have won for the first time at Brentford since 1938, and then just move on, as a bad commentator, you need context there. He's only played 2 matches in those 70 years, whatever it is.
You tell him, Tim.
Well, I hate it when commentators do that, because it happens a lot. It's happened with Brentford quite a bit in the past couple of years. So yeah, they're on an awful, barren winless run at Brentford of 2 games.
Well, you think if you just reminded me of, I'm not wishing to go back to Luton United, but Luton have lost 9 of their last 10 league games against Manchester United. The exception being the 1-1 draw there in April '92.
Brilliant. Remember
I'm not going to read them all out, but you can, it's like that with Luton for all of them. Anyway, Liverpool at Brentford. Right. I mean, Liverpool did just about get it done against Burnley. Mo Salah is back in training. I mean, that's, I'd say, a game changer, but they've kind of been all right without him.
Yeah, you'd be pretty surprised even if he is back in training, he'll be involved. I mean, by the time you listen to this, then Jurgen Klopp might have said whether he's playing or not. But yeah, I'd be pretty surprised if he has any involvement at all. There's no need to rush him back, particularly with the amount of games that Liverpool are going to have for the rest of the season. So, yeah.
I've got a note here, JJ, saying you love Curtis Jones.
Yeah, he's very good at football, though, which is one of the many reasons why I like him. I think he's often overlooked what he does for the team when he plays. Liverpool are better, not only because he does things on the ball that belie his youthful age, but also because he's very, very good out of possession, and his sense of timing, when to jump and when to tackle and what to do with the ball after he does that. His decision making is really high. I think decision making is one of the most important things that decide what a good footballer is. And Curtis Jones has high level decision making. Usually, always does the right thing, whether to speed up or slow down the tempo of the game. And he's really, really technically just good. Just very, very good with the ball, and has all sorts of bits and pieces. I think he should be in the England squad, and otherwise he's not.
I feel like him and we mentioned about Cole Palmer. I mean, they both come through the England youth setups. I know certainly Curtis Jones was with the under-21s. I'm now questioning whether Cole Palmer was most recently or not. But both of them should be pretty close if the team's going to be evolved and have fresh impetus in it in terms of the England national team.
Yeah, it's not. They both might be in the squad for the Euros, but it's sort of not really how Gareth Southgate works. He
Calvin Phillips has played 1 game now, so...
Calvin Phillips will... I mean, he was in the squad when he wasn't playing any games, so he'll be...
Once you're in, you're in.
He'll be there, and he's obviously been out to see Hendo, so he'll be in there as well, which kind of doesn't leave too many more spaces for central midfielders.
I believe one of the centre forwards from the Brentford-Liverpool game in 1938 is also in the squad.
Trent Alexander-Arnold is likely to miss a few games again now, Tim. I think it's a recurrence. Well, I think what I saw is that his knee didn't really heal first time around, and they tried to get him back in, and he sort of aggravated it again. That's a bit of a worry, I suppose.
It's quite annoying for Liverpool and for England, actually, because he's been tried in central midfield a few times before Christmas. So the injuries are sort of defining a lot of teams' seasons. Actually, there's been crises everywhere. It feels like whoever's going to keep the fittest squad, probably Man City, will win the league.
Aston Villa at the moment, not going to win the league. Yeah. But their players dropping like flies.
Yeah, Spurs had a horrendous run. Newcastle, all this contact sport, I tell you.
Is it though? If we just switch it to Brentford a little bit, I had the delights of Molineux at the weekend, and Brentford were good, and Wolves, I'm afraid, wasn't one of their best performances, Tim. But all the elements were there from Brentford as to why they have been, relatively successful since they've gone up. They were effective at set pieces. They were pretty tight defensively and really compact, and they had a constant goal threat even when they didn't have the ball, which is kind of a knack. I mean, so much of that is down to Ivan Toney. Everyone's basically saying he's off. In fact, I believe there's the suggestion, maybe it's confirmed, I'm not sure if it's confirmed, but we've reported certainly, Igor Thiago has signed from Club Brugge. He will arrive in the summer, 33 million euros. That's a lot of money if you're not selling Ivan Toney in the summer. So
sparks by Tony's return, as we kind of all expected, really. He's the talisman and leader. No, I read your piece last week, but you're the best qualified to talk about Brentford since you saw them in the flesh. But yeah, they hadn't won since, they were the worst team in the league since November, I think.
Yeah, their form was terrible. And I mean, I pretty much summed up my piece in like the first sentence then, so it was all right. But I think they kept their first clean sheet in 14 matches at Molineux. And a lot of people say, and even Thomas Frank says this, which is maybe why I probably shouldn't be saying it, but that defensively they conceded too many goals. But actually their defensive record isn't so bad. It's just that they've lost a lot of games narrowly. And I can't work out if that makes you bad defensively or just not quite good enough. Because there are lots of teams with a worse defensive record than them. But I just sense that they also having Ivan Toney back, but there was just a sense that they'd worked on some of the things that were causing them issues, and they looked like that well-coached Brentford team that are actually, normally fine in the Premier League, game to game.
They were another team that got sort of hampered by injuries as well. With they looked sort of not amazing, but okay when like Mbeumo and Wissa were both there. Wissa went to AFCON and Mbeumo's injured. I think it's that.
Yes,
right? Yeah. So no, obviously now Tony's back, they look much more potent. The thing of Mbeumo and Wissa means they'll be able to, if as we all assume Tony does go in the summer and this the guy Igor Thiago comes in, they'll be able to, bet him in a little bit more gradually.
And of course, Thomas Frank linked with the Liverpool job.
Indeed, among others.
Yes.
Do you reckon it would happen?
Well, I don't know if it would happen. I mean, it could.
It could happen.
Anything could happen.
Exactly.
I like that. That was very kind of Sky Sports News, kind of, always been linked with the Liverpool job, of course, ahead of this weekend's clash.
Ahead of this weekend's clash.
Wow, if he does well. I mean,
could he be in the hot seat at Anfield soon?
Could they be switching dugouts? But obviously, he'd then be in the away dugout at the G-Tech.
Well, if Football Manager is anything to go by, what will happen at the end of the season is that Jurgen Klopp and Guardiola will job swap. So
anything can happen in football. Speaking of which, what could happen at Turf Moor when Arsenal visit Vincent Kompany's struggling Burnley? Burnley at Turf Moor, that's like a tough place to go, is it? Well, no, it's not a tough place to go, Nick, because apparently, I had it written down here, they've lost 9 of their 12 games at Turf Moor, Burnley.
Yeah, in theory, this should be an absolute bloodbath. Because, Arsenal West Ham game was a bit strange because West Ham was so bad. Arsenal were pretty good, but I've seen Arsenal play better than that this season and, either win narrowly or not even win. So, if they play anything like that, then I think they'll still win this one pretty easily. So, yeah, Turf Moor, the archetypal easy place to go.
Arsenal have been very good since the winter break. It's played for 1-4, scored 16. I mean, admittedly, 6 of them were against West Ham. And everyone talking about their set pieces.
Yeah, set piece is very good, and Odegaard's really blossoming, probably in the form of his Arsenal career. I think lots of numbers back that up. I think he's the first player in the top 5 leagues to create 50 chances from open play this season. Expected assists more than anyone in the Premier League in the last 2 months. So yeah, the key question though from this game is how are Arsenal going to celebrate? Because 2 weeks ago they celebrated too much. Last week Declan Rice celebrated too little.
For a long time.
They get criticism for both, really. So what is it? Handshake and jog back to centre circle, or
yeah, they don't have any. Don't there are any former Burnley players there, so they haven't got that factor to kind of take into account. I don't know.
They should all hold hands and walk up to the stands like they do at the end of a play.
Yeah,
and bow.
And take a bow.
I think that's a lovely idea.
That's nice. And then they kind of usher the sort of star performers forward
Yes.
to take even more of a
And they
bet
get
on.
even more, yeah, exactly.
But in the order that they performed with the most stariest performer last,
Yeah.
you'd have to do that. And they'd have to come up with that decision quite quickly.
So yeah, who'd be last? Saka, Odegaard?
Yeah.
And then they would get the crowd to be quiet so they could announce that they're going to the pub around the corner afterwards if they want to
Oh, that's
see them for a drink afterwards or something. They'll be in the bar afterwards, you want to meet them.
that doesn't really. Does that happen at plays?
That's what JJ does after his gigs, isn't
I
it?
don't know, yeah, often. I saw, this won't go on the podcast, but I went to see Hamlet in the theatre. But the entire time until the day before, I thought I was about to go and see Hamilton.
Different,
And I
very,
turned up, and it
very
was
different
Hamlet.
vibes. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'll still go. My friend had bought tickets. I was like, okay, here we go. But then it turns out that Jeffrey from Fresh Prince was in the cast. He was amazing.
Oh.
And I was very starstruck in the bar afterwards because he was just stood by the bar. You know?
There's a play on at the moment called Hamnet, which is even more confusing.
I believe I've got tickets for that as well.
Yeah.
Next week. Well, hopefully it ends with someone bringing on a bouquet of flowers for Mikel Arteta.
That'd be nice, wouldn't
That
it?
would be a lovely way. Assuming they win. Who knows? Maybe it could be completely unexpected, like your trip to Hamlet, JJ. Well, that's lovely. I think we've summed up that one. We didn't do predictions for those two, but it's not on the script, so I'm not going to bother asking you. Would you like to do no? Would you normally do a prediction? Go on. Liverpool at Brentford, Tim.
Oh, crikey. Liverpool to win by 2 clear goals.
Is that accurate
In a
enough?
score of 2-0.
2-0. Excellent. JJ.
Liverpool will score 1 and Brentford will score 1 from a second phase of a free kick.
Okay, that's 1-1, yeah?
Yes, 1-1.
Liverpool 3-1.
Liverpool 3-1. I'll say Liverpool 2-1. And then Arsenal at Burnley.
4-0 Arsenal.
That's pretty good. 3-0.
That's pretty
5-0.
5-0. That's a good shout. 5-1. Go on, Brentford. Brentford, Burnley. Same difference. Any other business? We can go through the other Premier League fixtures as if there's anything anyone wants to bring up on any of them, obviously. I'm looking forward to the Tim Spiers derby, Tottenham against Wolves, which I do genuinely think will be a great game. I think it'll be lots of fun.
Yeah. It's a real shame Mateus Cunha's out for a few months because him and Neto and the returning Hwang, I'd love to see them with the space afforded to them beyond Spurs' back line. It'll be a good game. Neto's in fantastic form at the moment, so we'll give him a game.
I've written that down as a band name idea. The Returning Hwang. I keep a list of band names.
That would work.
Those them written down.
Have those three played much together?
No, because
Presumably not.
Neto missed sort of
Neto's
2-3
injured,
months. Hwang out for the Asian Cup, and now Cunha out with a
Cunha's really
hamstring
impressive
pain.
this season, I thought. He's really coming on something. Spurs should win this anyway, though, right? They should. Although their numbers, weirdly, if you look at their underlying numbers, expected goals and that usual stuff, Spurs are actually not anywhere near as good as you think they might be. They're about 10 goals over what their XG is, and their XGA has them really low down. They've exceeded an XG of 40.9 and they've let in 36, which is a slight overperformance of that. But the worry is that it puts them something like 16th in the table for 2019, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 13, which is better than 16. But the underlying numbers are kind of worrying. But I think John McKenzie's got a video on this coming out soon, actually, on the Athletic FC. And I think a lot of it's to do with the way that Ange Postecoglou wants his teams to play, and the way they play will naturally encourage these sorts of numbers, because a lot of that apparently is late in games. He doesn't want them to stop trying to keep pushing forward in the 80th minute, even if it's dangerous for the game state. So he'll just keep pushing them forward, and so they would concede many more chances, which is maybe why those numbers look worse than they are.
You can't leave a Spurs game early. It's not like Man City, is it, Nick? Anything else on the weekend list that catches your eye?
Inevitably, I'm going to pick up Nottingham Forest. Very big
Huge
game.
game.
Very big game, given that Forest's next fixture, so it's West Ham at home. West Ham obviously having a bit of a sticky time. Haven't won in 4, I think it is.
Well, this will be their reaction game, won't it? Will they give a reaction?
From a personal point of view, I desperately hope not. But yeah, Forest's next games after this one: Aston Villa away, Liverpool at home, then Brighton away, and with Manchester United in the FA Cup kind of tucked in there as well. So if Forest can't beat a beleaguered West Ham, beleaguered, I think they're probably beleaguered. Yeah,
Beleaguered territory.
You get hammered 6-0, you're beleaguered, aren't you? If you can't beat a beleaguered West Ham at home, when in theory, although not quite so much this season, home form is supposed to be Forest strength, then could be big problems with points deductions kind of looming as well.
Woof. And on that note, just to round off on the prediction stuff, Tim, you actually ended an 8-game incorrect prediction streak, as you kind of mentioned. You did get all 4 out of 4 right last time. Didn't realise that.
Okay.
So I highlighted one victory, which was absolutely spot on, but you got all 4 results right.
Yeah.
So
What do I get?
I would imagine a hug from Adam when he's back.
Ah, well, something to look
You
forward to.
Tell him I said that.
Fame.
And with that, that's what you get, JJ. We are done then, I think, in that case. Thanks, everyone, for today. Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, JJ. Top debut.
Thanks, and thank you to you, the listener and watcher.
Beautifully
The
done.
most important of all.
Nick, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I've just realised I didn't call you the bearded delight when I introduced you, which was I actually said to myself I would do, but
it was noted.
It was akin to a bearded delight performance. I will be back on Monday. Adam will be back next Friday as usual. Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.
If you like this video, click subscribe for more content like this. We'll be joined by the likes of David Ornstein, Matt Slater, Adam Crafton, Carl Anker, and plenty more through the season to bring you the inside track to the biggest stories in football. If you'd like to listen to the full episodes for free, search the Athletic Football Podcast wherever you get your podcasts from.